Maliki Yom Din. 1:3. 1.35 Master of the Day of Judgment. The root of the word Malik is MLK. The basic meanings of this root are: 1. To be master of something and in control. 2. Choice and intent, or authority. 3. A strong foundation, i.e., that support on which something is established. 4. That means through which some matter is resolved and reaches its desired conclusion. This is why cement or mud is called milakun, because by brick and stone becoming joined through this, each provides strength to the other, and in this way the wall reaches its completion. When this word is used for ordinary people, its meaning, generally, is of such a type of power and authority through which other human beings are made slaves, mamluk. It is termed malukiyat, dictatorship, authoritarianism, despotism. But when it is used for Allah, then obviously this will not mean tyrannical authority. Despite being the creator of everything, omnipotent and sovereign, Allah is not dictatorial. Hence, when it will be declared, to Allah belongs the dominion of the heavens and the earth. 2:107, in every instance this will mean that in the whole of the universe his dominion and authority reigns, but this fundamental meaning will also be implicit in it that this authority of his will also be the support for the life and nourishment of things of the universe. This authority is that cementing force due to which the elements of the universe are intertwined with each other as if these have become one single unit. And it is this mutual conjoining of theirs as a result of which the system of the universe is functioning with this balance and beauty. This is called Mu'adat. And it is from this respect that Allah also has the attribute of Al-Wajid, 85:14, i.e., the one who takes the process of evolution forward by generating mutual attraction and amalgamation between the particles of the universe. Wherever this attribute of Allah, Maqiyat, is mentioned in the Quran, it will need to be seen which of the above meanings is most suitable according to the context and background. In this verse of Surah Al-Fatiha it will mean authority or dominion. 1.36 Yom. This word is commonly translated as day, i.e., that day which consists of 24 hours. Undoubtedly in the Arabic language this word appears with this meaning as well, but its meaning is far broader than this. This word, Yom, is also used for what we call a period, or an age, or a stage, etc. Whatever prolonged and extended stages the universe has passed through to reach here, these have also been termed using the word Yom. And it is from this point of view that it is stated that one Yom of Allah's is equivalent to thousands and thousands of years of your reckoning, 32:5, in fact, it is of 50,000 of years, 70:4. In the verse being discussed Yom will mean time or era. 1.37 Ad-Din. This is a very comprehensive term of the Quran in which the summary of its whole teaching is encompassed. This is its focal point, this is that central point around which all its commands, principles, values, and laws revolve and present their raison d'être. By understanding the true meaning of this term, Islam can be comprehended, and if the Quranic concept of it is obscured in the minds, then nothing of Islam can be correctly comprehended, e.g., neither its beliefs and concepts, nor its constituents and commands, nor its objectives and requirements, nor its need and outcome. From these explanations it is clear how comprehensive, vast and important this term is, and how essential it is to understand it correctly, indeed, indispensable. As has been stated, this word contains vast meanings. On the one hand, its meanings are control, authority, rule, state constitution, law, organization and administration, decision, concrete outcome, reward and punishment, the law of requital. But, on the other hand, when this same word is used with reference to human beings, then its meanings are obedience, compliance, submission, and when its reference is to both Allah and man together, then its meanings will be obedience to the divine laws whose consequence manifests according to the laws defined by Allah. Numerous verses of the Quran can be quoted in support of the various meanings of this root noted above, but we consider that there is no need for this. At whatever places these verses appear, the relevant meaning will automatically become clear. At this point it is deemed appropriate to quote a comprehensive verse of Surah Al-Imran. It is stated, "Do they seek for other than the deen of Allah? While all creatures in the heavens and on earth have, willing or unwilling, bowed to his will, laws, and to him shall they all be brought back." 3:83. Do these people wish to adopt some other deen, other than Allah's deen? Are they searching for some other deen? Do they not see that whatever is in the highs and lows of the universe is submitting before his laws, willingly or unwillingly? This is that deen which encompasses the whole of the outer universe, i.e., that divine system according to which the system of the universe is functioning. From this the meaning of deen becomes clear, i.e., that system which is established according to the divine laws. After this it is directed that you, too, proclaim that we willingly submit before the laws of Allah only, and these are those laws which have continued to be given to mankind through the medium of the Anbiya, and have now been given in the Quran. This is what is known as Islam. 3:84. In the next verse it is stated, "If anyone desires a deen other than Islam, never will it be accepted of him, and in the hereafter he will be in the ranks of those who have lost." 3:85. Therefore whoever adopts some other deen other than al-Islam, which has been referred to above, that will not be worthy of acceptance before Allah, and such people will eventually witness in how great a loss they were. 1.38 The concept of own independent state. It is evident from this that deen is the name of that system, which is shaped according to the divine laws, in which every individual accepts the authority of Allah and Allah alone, and in which the precisely correct outcome of his every deed becomes established, which is called a return or recompense. It is clear that such a system in which obedience and submission is to the divine laws is only possible when the Muslim Ummah, Jamaat-e-Momineen, has its own independent state in which they have full control and authority to implement these laws. In other words, for the establishment of deen the existence of an independent state for Muslims is inescapable. In the absence of this, living a life according to ad-Din or al-Islam is impossible. This state is a natural consequence of Iman and Salih deeds, and its aim is to establish deen. See how this reality is elucidated in a clear and comprehensive style in this verse of Surah An-Nur, where it is stated, "Allah has promised to those among you who have Iman and work righteous deeds, that He will, of a surety, grant them in the land power, as He granted it to those before them, that He will establish in authority their deen, the one which He has chosen for them, and that He will change their state, after the fear in which they lived, to one of security and peace. They will follow me and not associate aught with me. If any do reject after this, they are rebellious and wicked." 24:55. Those people who have conviction in the truth of the divine laws, and then carry out such tasks according to them which become the cause for the emergence and manifestation and nourishment of their latent potentials, this has been promised to them by Allah, that He will bestow on them a state and government in this world just as He bestowed on these kinds of nations before them. This is called establishing power in the land. What is the purpose of this establishment? The purpose is so that the deen and system of life which Allah has selected for them becomes established and is constructed and implemented practically, and in this way, these people are able to live a life of peace and tranquility free from all kinds of fear and grief. This peace and tranquility is also not an aim in itself, rather its aim is that they should be able to adopt obedience to Allah's laws alone, thus ensuring that no one else is sharing in His sovereignty, obedience purely to the divine laws. This is ad-Din or al-Islam. Subsequently it is stated that after the meaning of deen becoming so evidently clear, if any denies it or rebels against it, then understand that they have stepped on the wrong path, having abandoned the right path. As will be explained later on at its appropriate place, ad-Din has two important aspects: establishment of salat and execution of zakat. Hence, the next verse after the above states, "So establish salat and give zakat, and obey the messenger, so that you may receive Ram." 24:56. In other words, the purpose of establishment of power in the land is so that ad-din becomes implemented, and as a result of this, you will become enabled to carry out the responsibility of establishing salat and executing zakat, and you can obey the messenger. This type of establishment in the land had taken place during the illustrious era of Rasulullah, and the very first head of state, or central authority of the state was Rasulullah himself. Hence, the practical shape of the establishment and strength of the system was simply this, that its central authority should be obeyed. 1.39 Obedience to the Messenger. This obedience was, in reality, of the divine laws themselves, but since their implementation was via this authority, therefore obedience to him was declared essential. This system was not confined to the virtuous life of Rasulullah, it was meant to advance further, since the Quran is the final and eternal code of life for mankind for all times, thus this was made clear by stating that Muhammad is no more than a messenger, many were the messengers that passed away before him. If he died or were slain, will you then turn back on your heels? If any did turn back on his heels, not the least harm will he do to Allah, but Allah will swiftly reward those who serve him with gratitude, by following the Quran. 3:144 Muhammad is no more than a messenger of Allah. Before this other similar messengers also came and having carried out their individual duties, passed away. Therefore, if tomorrow this messenger also dies, or is killed, then by thinking that the system of deen was only associated with his life, will you revert to your former way of life? Whoever does this will not be able to do any harm to Allah, he will only harm himself. But those who remain steadfast on this path will keep receiving the full fruits of their hard work and endeavors. At another place it is stated about the Jamaat-e-Momineen that those whom, if we establish them in the land, establish salat, and give zakat, enjoin right and forbid wrong, with Allah rests the end of all affairs. 22:41 These are the people who, when they acquire establishment in the land, they will carry out the responsibility of establishing salat and executing zakat, they will implement all the commands which the system will accept as being correct according to the divine laws. And they will forbid, by law, from those matters which will not be capable of being accepted according to these commands. In summary, decisions on all matters in this will be determined according to the laws of Allah. This is because Allah has decreed in very clear terms that the right to govern only belongs to Allah. The command is for none but Allah, 1240. And by stating the following about this rule of Allah, it was made clear that if any do fail to judge by what Allah has revealed, they are kafir. 544. Those people who do not establish rule according to Allah's book will be those who will be called kafir. Rasulullah himself was also commanded. So judge between them by what Allah has revealed. 548. O Rasool! You should judge their affairs according to the book of Allah. 1.40 The characteristic of Yawm ad-Din, period of Deen. In light of these elaborations, the meaning of the verse being discussed of Surah Al-Fatiha, Maliki Yawm ad-Din, becomes clear, i.e. that era in which the system of ad-Din will be established, in which only his laws and commands will be operating. What will be the cardinal characteristic of this era? In another verse this is clarified in these words. And what will explain to you what the day of judgment, Yawm ad-Din, is? 82:17. Who can tell you about Yawm ad-Din other than Allah? Yawm ad-Din is that day when. It is that day when no self shall have power to do aught for another, for the command, that day, will be with Allah. 82:19. This will be that era in which no human being will have any authority or control over another human being. In this, all authority and control will only be possessed by Allah, all matters in it will be under the obedience of Allah's law. This is the fundamental characteristic of Yawm ad-Din. Just reflect how much like a paradise that society will be, in which no human being will be the slave of another human being. Obedience is only carried out to Allah's laws, and the results of everyone's efforts and deeds will manifest according to these laws, no one will be treated unjustly and cruelly. 325. there should be no kind of manipulation and subjugation, deprivation and exploitation. 20:112. 1.41 Opposition to this system. It has been said above that in the system of Deen no human being retains any kind of authority and control over another human being. It is obvious that this kind of system is highly distasteful to groups which have vested interests. Generally, such groups can be divided into three categories. 1. The ruling class, no matter in what form it may be and whatever name may be given to it, i.e. it may be a kingship from an ancient era, dictatorship, or a democracy of modern times. 2. The capitalist elite which keeps the indigent and labor class under their subjugation based on the power of wealth. 3. And the religious clergy which does whatever it likes in the name of God. These three categories do their utmost to prevent this system from becoming established, and if does become established, that it does not endure. The Anbiya used to come with this very deen, and the establishment of the system was their responsibility as a messenger. They used to establish the system despite intense opposition from these groups of vested interests, but after their departure, these groups would again raise their heads and begin to make efforts to dismantle it. In pursuit of this aim, these three groups would unite with each other, with the clergy leading the way in all of this. There was a particular reason for this. It is a fact that falsehood cannot succeed by appearing in its true shape, therefore it always deceives under a cloak of truth. If these people had preached in clear words to the followers of Deen to abandon Deen, they would never have listened to them. The technique they adopted was to maintain the terminology of Deen intact, but they changed their meanings. They left the forms of the constituents and elements of its practical program unaltered, but by sucking out their soul, made them into lifeless statues. After this they separated worldly matters from matters of Deen. Matters relating to worldly affairs were given into the hands of the government, and they made themselves masters of matters of Deen. By these matters is meant beliefs, rituals of worship, and personal laws such as marriage, divorce, etc. In worldly matters the decisions of the government began to be implemented, and in matters of Deen their fatwas began to operate. Whatever had happened to the established system of Deen of former Anbiya, the very same also befell Islam. 1.42 Deen became converted into religion, madhab. After the initial period of Islam, dictatorship raised its head, and together with this the religious clergy came into existence. Deen became divided into two parts. The part which the religious clergy took under its cloak is called madhab instead of Deen, and which is translated as religion in English. In religion the system of government invariably becomes secular. This is that very format of Islam which is established up until the present time, according to which it is declared that for obedience to Sharia there is no need for the existence of an independent state. Prayer, fasting, Hajj, Zakat, etc. i.e., obedience to the pillars of Islam can be performed under every kind of government, and by this the aim of Islam becomes accomplished. And regarding the issue of the authority of Allah, its domain is confined to the life of the hereafter, not to this worldly life. Hence, when according to madhab the translation of Maliki Yawm-id-Din is done as master of the Day of Judgment, what is meant by this is that the Day of Judgment is the day of Qiyamah. It has no relevance to this world. This is that deception which the religious clergy has been promoting from the very beginning. In this, Deen becomes transmuted into mere madhab. At the time of the revelation of the Quran, only religions remained in the world, the system of Deen did not exist anywhere. And even now only religions remain in the world, including Muslims. Deen does not exist anywhere. The difficulty in other religions was that the original Book of Allah did not exist in its true form with them, therefore it was impossible for their religion to convert again into the system of Deen. With us, Allah's book, the Quran, exists in its original unadulterated form, therefore it is not impossible to establish the system of Deen again among Muslims. Whichever free state of Muslims makes this decision that it will keep its system under the obedience of the Quran, it will become the cause for the establishment of the system of Deen. I have always emphasized this matter, that Islam should not be called a madhab. It is not a madhab but Deen. Hence, this should only be called deen. In this way Islam will become set apart on one side from the religions of the world and will also be different and distinct from other systems of government. Finally, it is necessary to clarify this much, that by Yawm ad-Din is not only meant the domain of Allah's system in this world. Human life also proceeds forward after death, and the future of every individual, status in the life of the hereafter, is determined according to the effects of his deeds which are committed by him in this life. From this respect, the domains of Allah's law of requital are both this world and the hereafter, therefore by Allah being master of Yawm ad-Din will mean the inclusion of both of these domains. We have noted above that the technique of religion is that it maintains the terminology and constituents of deen as such, but alters their meanings. Details of this will be found under the meaning of ibadat which now comes before us. 1.43 Iaka nabadu, we obey you. The first part of the next verse of Surah Al-Fatiha, 1:4, is Iaka nabadu i.e. After bringing the correct concept of Allah's Hamdat, Rabubayat, Ramaniyat, Rahimiyat, and Makiyat before him, a moment spontaneously proclaims that Iaka nabadu. In this nabadu the whole system of deen is incorporated. It is usually translated as we only worship you, and if this translation is done that we only do your ibadat, even then the meaning of ibadat is taken as being worship. By converting ibadat into worship, deen turns into religion. In every religion puja, worship, of God is performed, but in deen Allah's ibadat is done. 1.44 Ibadat, obedience. Its root is nbd from which the word abdun originates, and as we know, the meaning of abd is that of a slave and subject. In the Quran this word is used precisely to mean slavery and subjugation. It is noted in Surah Al-Shu'ara that when Musa went to Pharaoh and requested to be given permission to take Bani Israel away with him, Pharaoh replied, Musa, we heap so many favors on you, and you are returning these favors in this way. In reply, Musa stated, these are your favors, are they not? That you have enslaved, Abad ta, Bani Israel. 26:22. That you have kept my people shackled in subjugation and slavery to you. Here, the meaning of Abad ta is transparent. In another verse, when Musa and Harun invited Pharaoh and his courtiers to accept Iman in Allah, they responded. They said, shall we have Iman in two men like ourselves? And their people are subject to us? 23:47. What, should we agree to their proposition, who are only two men like ourselves, and their people are our subjects? From these and other similar verses this reality becomes evident that abdat means to accept submission to Allah. In Surah Al-Kahf the words ma'umiyat and ibadat are used as synonyms. At one place it is stated, nor does he share his command with anyone whatsoever. 18:26. Allah does not share his right to govern with anyone. And at another place it is stated to the individual who seeks good in his future that he should not include any other in the ibadat of his Rabb. In submission of his Rabb admit no one as partner. 18:110. In Surah Yusuf it is stated that Yusuf said to his companions in the prison that the command is for none but Allah, he has commanded that you submit to none but him, that is the established deen. 1240. Remember, only Allah holds the right to govern. He has commanded that other than him, do not adopt the abudiyat, ma'umiyat, of anyone else. Here, too, his ma'umiyat is declared to be his ibadat. And after this, it is stated this is the concrete and established deen. From this reality becomes clear that according to the Quran, ibadat of Allah means to adopt his ma'umiyat, i.e. to follow his laws, and this is what is known as ad-Din. This fact also becomes evident from this that submission to Allah, adopting his ma'umiyat, is not obedience to some dictator, this is obedience to law, because the fundamental meaning of deen is that of law. 1.45 Self-discipline. But in this abdat another point is implicit. In the Arabic language tabidun means by training a camel or horse to enable it to carry out tasks, i.e. To train this wild animal in such a way that it uses its powers and potentials according to a particular pattern and discipline. Allah has bestowed many potentials and powers on man. If man keeps these forces rebellious and unbridled, i.e., employs these according to his emotions, then the consequence is nothing but chaos and disintegration. But if, keeping these very same potentials within Allah's defined limits, he employs these according to his designated laws and codes, then the outcome is universal rububiyyat and the development of his own self. From this viewpoint, ibadat will mean to employ one's own potentials and abilities according to the laws of Allah. Revisit the verse of Surah An-Nur 24:55, quoted earlier. It is stated in this verse that as a consequence of iman and righteous deeds, establishment in the land, a free state, is acquired for this reason that deen becomes established in this, and that you become capable of yabulatinduna ni, you carry out solely my obedience. 1.46 Own independent state. From here this reality has also become clear that ibadat of Allah can only be adopted when Muslims have acquired power in the land, i.e., they have their own independent state in which they are enabled to live their life according to Allah's laws. For the worship of Allah it is not necessary to have one's own independent state. As indicated earlier, Allah's worship can also be carried out under the rule of the kufr. The Quran has been revealed in the language of the Arabs, and as has already been stated, at the time of the revelation of the Quran, deen did not exist anywhere, religion abounded everywhere. In religion there is no concept of the ma'umiyyat of Allah, instead there is the concept of worship of Him. In this respect, the meaning of this word ibadat was transmuted into worship by Arabic-speaking religionists, and Arabs who were mushrikeen. Therefore, wherever in the Quran this word is mentioned in relation to them, then according to the connotation attributed to it by them, it will be taken to signify worship. But when this refers to the concept of Allah as presented by the Quran and to the Jamaat-e-Mu'minin who have iman in this, then this will mean Allah's hakmiyyat, rule. And the meaning of his ma'umiyyat, rule, will come to the fore from the direction of this Jamaat. From this viewpoint, when these servants of Allah will recognize and acknowledge this AMR, they will state that we obey you. 1:4. 1.47 True freedom. So this will mean that we do not accept the rule of anyone other than Allah, we simply do not accept the right to govern of anyone else. Just reflect how great and supreme a proclamation and slogan of freedom and autonomy this is, so supreme that from this man advances forward freely from every doorstep of the world, wrapped with extreme devotion, and never bows down before any human being. In the words of Iqbal, this one prostration which you consider burdensome bestows freedom on man from 1,000 prostrations. This is that freedom which servants of Rahman achieve by obedience of Allah. The Quran proclaims in very clear terms that this is indeed the true status of man, that he should never bow down before anyone other than the divine laws, that he should not adopt the ma'umiyyat of anyone else. I have created jinns, rural dwellers, and men, urban population, so that they may follow my laws. 51:56. Whether men are living an urban life or a life in the desert, they are created for this very reason, that they should not accept the rule of anyone other than Allah. This is that acceptance and proclamation which is in the life-giving announcement of Iyaka na'budu, and this is the very meaning of La ilaha illa Allah, there is no possessor of authority other than Allah. According to Iqbal, the manifestation of sovereignty only belongs to this omnipotent being. He is the one ruler, the rest are the idols of Azar. But the aim of acceptance of the sovereignty of Allah does not mean that some matter of Allah needs to be put right, the aim from this is the development of man's own self. And this truth is evident from the next two words of the verse. Wa'iyaka nasta'in. 1:4. These words are commonly translated as we seek your help only. Many other words are present in the Arabic language and in the Quran for the word help. The question is, why has this word been selected here? As has already been noted, the Arabic language has very wide-ranging meanings. In it there are hundreds of words for each single thing. The words which have been selected by the Quran from these numerous words for the expression of its objectives and requirements is in itself a miracle of the Quran. This is why when the Quran uses a particular word at a certain place, we need to examine why it has selected and used this word there. If this fact becomes clear, then not only will the meaning of the relevant verse become apparent, but more or less the full teaching of the Quran, or an aspect of its purpose and aim, hikmat, will also appear in front of us. This is the reason why understanding the correct meaning of the words of the Quran is absolutely essential. This objective cannot be achieved through a translation. 1.48 Meaning of Mistan. The root of istan is nwan. A wan is that animal or human being which is in a full-grown state and its energies have become fully developed, with this proviso that these are also fully balanced. Therefore, istan will mean to wish for the fullest development and balance in one's own self and to seek someone's help for this purpose. It is from this respect that Allah has been called Al-Mistan in 21:112. In the first part of this verse, Eia Nabadu was stated, in which by abd was meant the utilization of one's own potentials and energies according to the divine code. Therefore, the meanings of Eia Nabadu were that we employ our full potentials and energies according to your laws and commands only. For this purpose it is important that man's potentials and energies are developing and that there should also be full balance in them, because if no proportion and balance remains in the potentials and powers, then these go to waste or produce destructive effects. For the production of constructive results it is necessary for there to be proportion and balance in them. The meaning of Eia Nasta'in is that we wish for this kind of development in our potentials and energies, and this aim can only be achieved by living life according to the code decreed by you, Allah. 1.49 The meaning of dua, supplication. Eia Nasta'in, we desire or ask for your help in this aim, contains an aspect of supplication in it. What the meaning of supplication is according to the Quran will be explained a little later, where verses relating to entreating Allah will appear before us. At this point it is necessary to only understand this much, that you cannot perform an action until a desire or yearning for this does not first arise in your heart. You cannot perform any task without an intention. The degree to which this desire or yearning is intense, your intention will be strong for the achievement of this aim. And the degree to which your intention is strong, to the same degree you will employ your power and persistence to achieve this aim. The spontaneous appearance on the lips of the intense yearning which is agitating in the heart is called dua, supplication. Indeed, mostly this yearning does not even need to appear on our lips in the form of words, its mere emergence in the heart becomes a dua in itself. 1.50 Wishes of a Momin. In relation to the meaning of Bismillah we have stated that whatever task a momin forms an intention to do, the desire from out of all desires, i.e. his ultimate aim, is that the attributes of Rahmaniyat and Rahimiyat of Allah manifest and become implemented. In other words, universal Rabubayat is sought from this. It becomes clear from this that every desire or wish of a momin is according to the values and laws of Allah. That is why it is stated, and you should only wish that which Allah wishes, 76:30. Hence, for the accomplishment of his desires and wishes, or for the achievement of the aim before him, a momin of Allah will solicit the support of the laws and values of Allah. This means that he would wish that every step of his which is taken for the achievement of this aim is according to these values and laws. This is called seeking support, i.e. human intention and action being congruent with the guidance of Allah. This is what will be termed desiring Allah's help. 1.51 Action accompanying dua, supplication. In the explication of dua it will be explained that this does not mean that whatever we ask from Allah we will get it automatically. For this it will be necessary to make full endeavors according to the procedure laid down by Allah. Furthermore, seeking the help of Allah does not mean that we make a supplication, and that desire becomes fulfilled straight away. For this we will need to work according to the program designated by Allah. In Surah Al-Baqarah it is stated, O Jamaat-e-Mu'minin, seek help from Allah through patience and salat. Remember Allah's help comes to those who are steadfast in their aim. 2:153. After stating that you should seek Allah's help through salat and sabr, in the subsequent verses it is described what kind of distressing and life-threatening stages will need to be negotiated for this. In these stages fear and danger will have to be countered, hunger and thirst will have to be faced, there will be loss of life and possessions, even life itself may have to be sacrificed. Allah's help will only come to those people who provide proof of resoluteness and perseverance during these patience testing stages. 2:154-157. In Sura Anbiya first this eternal principle is described that inheritance of power in the land is the share solely of those people who tread on the program of development of human potentials designated by Allah. 21:105. After this, that struggle is referred to which was taking place between Rasulullah and the groups with vested interests opposing him in relation to making the rahmat of Allah universal. Following that it was stated through the blessed lips of Rasulullah that, O my Rabb, you decide between me and these people with haqq. After this it is stated, our Rabb, Ar Rahman, is the one whose assistance should be sought against what these people utter. 21:112. Then the opposing people were told, we seek the assistance of Allah who is Ar Rahman against the kinds of things you are saying. This is called istianat and Allah is called al-Mustan. It is clear from this too, what the meaning of seeking Allah's aid is. In the verse under consideration, 1:4, the words anabadu and nasta'in are in plural form, and not only at these two places, all the supplications of the Jamaat Imamanin are in plural form, i.e. this seeking of aid is not individual, it is collective. This is because, as has been stated already, all the aims of the Mu'minin are achieved through that collective system which is established according to the divine laws. In this system individuals cooperate with each other, and from this mutual coordination and cooperation the system takes shape and remains strong. This system only becomes established through the mutual collaboration of individuals, and its aim and purpose is the nourishment and development of people. This is why it is stated, help you one another in righteousness and virtue, but help you not one another in sin and rancor. 5:2. From this it is clear that Allah's aid is not obtained in caves, shrines, temples, monasteries, this is obtained through the collective program of the divine system. We have stated above that the beginning of every effort or action by man is through a wish or desire arising in his heart. By becoming intense, this same desire becomes an intention, and after this intention becomes reinforced, a step is taken for the achievement of this aim. The stage of taking a step is a very important one and at the same time a very delicate one as well. For example, you leave the house with the intention to travel somewhere. In order to reach this place, the first and indispensable condition is that you set out on the exact route. If you step in the wrong direction, then you will travel the distance, and in this process your time and energy will also be expended, but ultimately what will happen is that not only will you not reach the intended destination, instead you will have distanced yourself far away from it. Hence, when you sought Allah's aid for the aim of the desired destination by saying Iaka nasta'in, this meant that first of all you wished that the correct or straight path to reach this destination becomes visible to you. In order for this, the desire of your heart reached your lips by becoming this supplication. Show us the straight path. 1:5. 1.52 The straight path, Sirat al-Mustaqim. The first word of this verse is Ihdina, from which the aim is to seek guidance. As you know, the word guidance has appeared in the Quran, in different forms, with great frequency and wide-ranging meanings. This is because there is a line of demarcation between guidance and misguidance, truth and falsehood, and iman and kufr. Hence, it is vital to understand its correct meaning. In the exposition of Rabbi al-Alamin it has been stated that the meaning of Rabu'bayat is to take a thing from the point of its beginning, gradually towards its completion by continuously providing nourishment. It is obvious that according to this program the things of the universe will have to undertake a journey. They will have to follow a particular direction, and this path will also be one which is designated by Allah Himself, because by following any path other than the one designated and defined by Him, this aim cannot be achieved. This mode of directing is called guidance. For this the condition is that this guidance is clear, perspicuous, radiant, and tangible. This characteristic is implicit within the meaning of this root itself. Conjectural, speculative, doubtful, suspicious, vague guidance cannot be called divine guidance. This guidance has been endowed to all things of the universe from Allah. In Surah Al-Alaq it is stated that Rabb is He who has created, and further, given order and proportion, who has ordained laws and granted guidance. 87:2-3. The one who initiated creation, and then by trimming away the excesses and superfluities of everything, produced balance and proportion in it, then established scales, laws, for it, and determined that objective to which it has to reach, and provided it with guidance in order to reach it. By summarizing it in this way, the Quran states at another place, "Our Rabb is He who gave to each thing its form and nature, and further, gave it guidance." 20:50. Our Rabb is He who gave everything its form and then guided it to reach its intended objective. This guidance is present within everything. This is called the instinct or fitrat, nature, of these things, which these things are constrained to obey. The nature of water is to flow downhill in the form of a liquid. Having reached a certain temperature it should freeze, or, on the other hand, become steam and float away. The instinct of a goat is to eat grass and to not even glance at meat. The instinct of a lion is to drink blood and eat meat. If you put the eggs of both a hen and a duck under the hen for hatching, when the young emerge from these eggs, the duck's offspring will make a beeline for the water, whereas even if you wish to lead the hen's chicks towards water, they will take flight from there. This guidance is present within them from the time of birth. It does not need to be acquired from any external source. The Quran has also called this as wahi towards them. For example, with regard to wahi towards the honeybee it is stated, "And your Rabb taught, wahi, the honeybee to build its cells in hills, on trees, and in habitations." 16:68. "And sent wahi to the stellar bodies," 41:12, "and to the earth," 99:5, etc. 1.53 Guidance for man. Man is also included among the creations of Allah. He also needs to traverse his evolutionary stages to reach his designated destination. For this, he has to undertake a journey and traverse the distance. For this also correct guidance is needed, and responsibility for this guidance has also been assumed by that Allah who has endowed guidance to the things of the universe. Hence, His decree is, "Verily we take upon ourselves to guide." 92:12. Providing guidance to human beings is also our responsibility. At another place it was proclaimed through the lips of Ibrahim, that Rabbi al-Alamin is He who created me, and it is He who guides me. 26:78. In relation to the account of Adam, which is noted by the Quran metaphorically and details of which will be covered in Surah Al-Baqarah, it is stated that when paradise became snatched from Adam, and he fell into a despondent state about whether there is any chance of rectification for me or not, then Allah said to him, "Do not despair. And if, as is sure, there comes to you guidance from me, whosoever follows my guidance, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve." 238. Guidance will keep coming in your direction from me, and whoever amongst you treads the path according to this, he will reach the intended destination without fear and danger. From these verses, and many other verses of this kind, it is clear that the responsibility for the guidance of man has also been assumed by Allah Himself, but the form in which this guidance is given to them is quite different. Regarding the things of the universe, this guidance has been placed within them, but this is not the case for human beings. For them the method adopted was that this guidance from Allah, which is called wahi, was bestowed on a chosen righteous individual. He is termed a Nabi or Rasool, and he used to communicate this guidance to other people. They had the choice to obey this guidance and thus reach their intended destination without fear and danger, or by choosing other, wrong, paths for themselves to become ruined and destroyed. This guidance used to be available from Allah to a Nabi first of all. Hence, it is stated about Rasulullah himself. And he found you wandering in search of truth, and he gave you guidance. 93:7. We found you earnestly seeking reality, so we guided you towards the right path. 1.54 Allah's Wahi, Divine Guidance. The Wahi which was bestowed in the direction of a Nabi was called his book, i.e., the book of Allah sent down on him. Thus, the aim of following Allah's guidance was obedience of this book. The Wahi which was sent to Rasulullah is noted and preserved in the Quran. This Wahi is complete, as well as immutable. Therefore it is proclaimed about this book. Verily we have revealed the book to you in truth, for mankind. He, then, that receives guidance benefits his own self, but he that strays injures his own self. Nor are you set over them to dispose of their affairs, not to force them onto this path. 39:41. We have sent down this book upon you, which is based on Haqq, so that mankind can obtain guidance from it. Proclaim to them that whoever acquires this guidance, the benefit of this will be to his own self. The one who, by adopting other paths, goes astray, his loss will also only be to himself. Your task is to make this guidance reach these people, not to force them to tread on this path, because you have not been made a guardian over them. From this, two matters have become clear. 1. That the responsibility of the messenger was to communicate Allah's guidance to others, it was not his responsibility to make them tread on this path. The Quran has stated at a number of places that if it was intended to make mankind tread on this path like the things of the universe, then they, too, would have been created constrained like those things. With respect to this very choice and intent, it is stated in another verse that we showed him the path, now it is his choice whether to accept it or reject it. 76:3. See also, 18:29. At another place it is stated that, O Rasool, it is simply not within your control to cause someone to tread on the right path, no matter how much your heart may desire this. Only the one who wishes to adopt this path through his own intention and desire will tread on the right path. 28:56. A great reality has been noted in this, and that is that only he will tread on the right path who steps out of his home to reach some destination, and having reached a crossroads, is in search of stepping in the right direction. For the individual who does not even wish to set out on a journey, the question of guidance simply does not arise in his case. Nor for the one who sets out on the journey but without defining an objective, this is not called journeying, but loitering. And the Quran terms this as wasted deeds, i.e., fruitless movements and deeds. Such people do not consider any guidance to be of any worth to them. These are the people about whom it was stated to Rasulullah that, can you then make the deaf to hear, or give direction to the blind, or to such as wander in manifest error? 43:40. What, do you wish to make those hear, who continue to sit with their ears deaf, and do not even wish to hear the message? Do you wish to show those people the path who do not even wish to open their eyes, and in this way end up in manifest misguidance? True guidance can only be received by the one in whose heart there is a palpitating desire to reach the destination and he then strives in search of the right direction. And those who strive in our cause, we will certainly guide them to our paths. 29:69. To those people who strive to seek the path which leads towards us, we show them the right paths, and as stated above, this right path is found through obedience of the book sent down by Allah, and cannot be found by any other technique. Say, the guidance of Allah, that is the only guidance. 2:120. O Rasool, announce to these people that true guidance is only that which is made available from Allah. Other than this, no guidance can take the caravan of humanity to its intended destination. This is that very path which is termed as being Sirat-e-Mustaqim. 1.55 Sirat-e-Mustaqim, straight and balanced path. At this stage it is also essential to understand another important point. An individual possesses the intention to travel to Rawalpindi from Lahore. He awakes in the morning and peruses the railway timetable. he checks what the timings are of the trains going to Rawalpindi and when these will reach there, what the fare is, and what is the procedure to reserve a seat, etc. By meticulously studying the timetable, he satisfies himself regarding these matters, and after that he puts it away safely. He enacts the same thing every morning, and carries it out like a duty, but he never leaves his house in order to go to Rawalpindi. In your opinion, do you think he will reach Rawalpindi by doing this all his life? And will studying the timetable like this every day cause any benefit to reach him? The answer is clear. Therefore, reading the Book of Allah, and understanding it will only benefit the one who takes practical steps under its guidance in the journey of life. Only he will be able to reach the destination who undertakes the journey under the guidance of this supreme book. This book will guide towards Sirat-e-Mustaqim, it will not pick someone up and make him reach the destination. These words are generally translated as the straight path. Straight path is the translation of the word Sirat only. But here, together with as-Sirat, the word al-Mustaqim is also stated. The root of this word is qwam, from which the word qiam is derived. Qiam means to stand up, and it is obvious that only that individual can stand up whose balance is stable. Any slight distortion in the balance, and an individual cannot remain upright, nor anything else. From this respect the meaning of mustaqim is possessing balance. Hence, the meaning of Sirat-e-Mustaqim will be the straight and smooth path, such a straight path that it has no bends and turns, and so smooth that there are no bumps or dips in it. 1.561 Great Truth. As has been stated previously, there is also a miracle of the Quran implicit in the selection of words. Though the meaning of Sirat is a straight path, a supreme reality is hidden in the straightness of this path. The style of the Quran is that wherever it presents positive tenets from itself, together with this it also keeps refuting erroneous and batil ideologies, and both these aspects are implicit in as-Sirat. 1.57 The cyclical concept of life. According to the concept which the human intellect devised about human life, the movement of life is considered cyclical. When the Greek philosophers pondered on the heavenly bodies, they found them to be spherical. From this the greatness of a sphere or circle became embedded in their minds. And as a result they formulated this belief that the movement of the universe and human life is cyclical, in other words, it is orbiting within a circle. In the case of a circle, what happens is that at whatever point anything starts its movement, after going around in a full circle, it returns to that same point, it does not progress forward. Like a merry-go-round, it keeps repeating one circle on the same one path. From this Pythagoras formulated the doctrine of transmigration of the soul. According to this doctrine, it is believed that man came into this world after one birth and became tainted with evils, sins. After his death his soul is returned to this world in some other form so that he could remove some of these stains. This process does not end with just one or two birth cycles, for this it is necessary to pass through millions of cycles, i.e. ever new births, until man eventually reaches his first form. At that time these cycles come to an end, i.e. the purpose of all these cycles is that man should become just the same as he was originally. This is the ultimate aim of the cyclical process. This cyclical concept of life is not just confined to transmigration of the soul, the doctrine of salvation in world religions takes root from this very concept. Christianity stated that every child comes with the burden of sin from his very first father and mother, Adam and Eve, at the time of his birth. There is only one way to achieve salvation from this burden of sin, and that is to have faith in the atonement of Jesus. Through this faith man again becomes pure and clean as he was before his birth. In other words, the same concept which was the basis of transmigration of the soul. Those religions which established the concept of hell, Jahannam, stated that though man comes into this world pure and clean, such sins become committed here by him due to which his self becomes stained. In order to cleanse these stains he will be placed in hell in the hereafter. Thus the simile of a washerman's vat is used among them. His becoming pure and clean again in this way is called najat, salvation. You have seen that the same concept of cyclical movement is in place here as well, i.e. after such a long and winding journey to reach that same point from where man originally set out. 1.58 The belief of followers of mysticism. This was the concept of those who follow Shariat. The followers of Tariqat presented this concept in another hue. According to the Vedanta of Hindus, it was asserted that the human soul, Atma, is part of the great soul of Brahma, Paramatma. This part, by separating from its origin, has become trapped in the quagmire of matter. The requirement is for it to be cleansed and purified of the stain so that it can rejoin with its origin. This is called salvation. For this there is the need for great hardships, to practice giving up desires, soul-destroying and self-deprecating sufferings. The nirvana of Buddhism also presents a similar concept. This same belief of Vedanta appeared in the form of Jewish mysticism and the monasticism of Christianity, and it was from there that the Muslims borrowed it and gave it the name Islamic mysticism. This is that doctrine which is noted by Rumi in one of his poems, i.e. that the flute laments and wails because it has separated from its origin, and this yearning will end when it merges with its origin once again. This is the only achievement of all the struggles and endeavors in life. Similarly, the merging and becoming lost of the human self into the divine being is called wasal in the terminology of Sufism, i.e. lost in Allah, and hence Allah remains. From these explanations you will have observed what kinds of beliefs and doctrines the concept of the cyclical movement about life encompasses, and what kind of concept, not just about human life, but also about its creator, Allah, emerges before us from this. The creation of the universe. The birth of man. The process of righteous heavenly guidance. The coming of the Anbiya. The meaning of all of this is that out of all possible purposes the only purpose of such a vast, detailed, and lofty program from Allah is that in whatever form something was originally, it should become the same again, as you were. Such a worthless and aimless program can in no way be attributed to the supremacy and omniscience of Allah. The Quran ended all these batil, false, beliefs by declaring that the movement of life is not cyclical but sarati. The caravan of life is traversing on a straight and direct path, which means that it is advancing forward by passing through its evolutionary stages. 1.58.1 The Quranic concept of life. The objective of this journey is not to again arrive at that point from where the journey had commenced. Its aim is to reach that destination which is far ahead and very elevated from its starting point. The journey of life is not cyclical but evolutionary. The aim of this striving and endeavor is not to revert to the previous state by becoming free of difficulties or becoming pure and clean from stains. Its aim is to become far more superior than before, and to achieve a lofty status. It is on this basis that the Quran has declared the purpose of human life to be achievement, not salvation. According to the Quranic concept, the human self is not a part of Allah's being. The self is an indivisible unity. It simply cannot be divided into parts. When some part of a thing becomes detached from it, it then becomes an incomplete thing, it becomes flawed. As a result of this, that self simply does not remain as a self. Therefore, the human self is not a detached part of the being of Allah. Allah has endowed man with a self in an undeveloped form, and the purpose of human life is that through its becoming developed, it becomes enabled to traverse further evolutionary stages. This destination will become apparent in the afterlife. From this you have witnessed that from the supplication which the Quran has informed us about to tread on Sirat-e-Mustaqim, by this it has also refuted the false beliefs about the aim and purpose of human life. And in addition has placed a positive, constructive program in front of man, which by advancing him forward, will take him to elevated heights. You shall surely go from stage to stage. 84:19. So that man keeps on rising to ever more elevated heights, stage by stage. This is Sirat-e-Mustaqim. 1.59 Allah is on Sirat-e-Mustaqim. In Surah Hud it is stated, "Verily, it is my Rabb that is on a straight path." 11:56. The common translation of this is that Allah is also treading on the straight path. But its meaning is that the whole system of the universe, while treading on the straight path according to Allah's laws, is traversing evolutionary stages. In the human world it is the messenger of Allah who first of all treads on this straight and balanced path. This is why it is stated about Rasulullah that, "Verily, you are on a straight path." 43:43. You are undoubtedly journeying on the straight path. It was stated to the Jamaat Imamanin that you should adopt this maslak that ia ka nabadu ie. We only accept the rule of Allah. After that it is stated that they are the ones who yearn to remain treading on sirat-e mustaqim, and by combining these two it is stated, "It is Allah who is my Rabb and your Rabb, then follow him. This is the way that is straight." 351. O Rasool, inform them that your Rabb and my Rabb is Allah. All of you should also only accept his rule. This is what sirat-e mustaqim is. From this it is evident that sirat-e mustaqim is simply another name for accepting obedience to Allah. You have observed how the Quran keeps explaining itself. 1.60 What are subul as-salam? In relation to sirat-e mustaqim, the clarification of another point is also considered to be essential. Sirat-e mustaqim, the superhighway, is only one. This is that great highway about which guidance has continued to be made available via all the Anbiya, but Allah has stated about the Quran that it is a shining light, nur-e-mubin, a crystal clear light, wherewith Allah guides all who seek his good pleasure to paths of peace and security and leads them out of darkness by his will unto the light, guides them to a path that is straight. 5:16. Through this Allah guides those people who follow his program towards subul as-salam, paths of security and peace, and in this way he brings them out from the darknesses into the light. Here, the Quran has called it subul, which is the plural of sabil, single path, and its meaning is many paths. The question which arises here is that when sirat-e mustaqim is only one, then why did the Quran say subul? This point is worthy of reflection. Ad-Din has always been one and the same right from the beginning, but to bring it into practical shape in different eras, according to the needs of that time, the method and program has remained different. In other words, the principal laws bestowed by Allah have remained immutable right from the start and will remain so. But the methods to act upon them will keep on changing according to the demands, needs, of the time. These are what will be called subul, i.e., those narrow side roads which eventually merge with the main highway. This is why in this verse, 5:16, after subul as-salam, it is stated that this is the way in which Allah guides them towards sirat-e mustaqim. This means that whatever methods are adopted to act in accordance with the system of Deen, their aim should be to take man towards the true Deen. This is that sirat-e mustaqim for which the heart of a mu'min is ardent to tread on. Until now the matter was merely ideological. In the next verse, the Quran presents its purpose and aim in a tangible form when it states that the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, name at 1:6. In other words, that path on which these kinds of people had previously treaded, and whose consequence was that anamta alayhim. 1.61 Anamta alayhim. A description of the guidance to that sirat-e mustaqim for which supplication was made to Allah is presented in a tangible form. What is being stated is that this is the path of those people who you bestowed with your bounties. It is obvious that this is a very comprehensive thing, i.e., such a thing through which, by practically obeying Deen, all the results and achievements emerge before us, whether these are obtained in this world or in the life of the hereafter. Therefore, it is vital to comprehend the correct Quranic meaning of namat because this is that tangible criterion from which it will be possible to assess whether we are in possession of Allah's na'ima or not. If we do possess these, then our iman is iman according to Quranic terminology, and our deeds are righteous deeds, amal-e saleh. If these are not possessed, then that which we call iman and righteous deeds, through which we may satisfy our heart giving it false contentment, will be no more than a self-deception. There is a plant among the Arabs which they call tanimatun. Its leaves are soft and delicate, evergreen, and beautiful. It grows on water as a result of which there is never any alteration in its freshness and bloom, but together with this, the the meaning of elevation and successfulness is included in its root, nnm. Hence, Al-Namatu is the name given to that building which has been constructed on a hill, also to some elevated signpost or flag from which a direction can be determined. From these meanings it is clear that the manifestation of Namat means for every aspect of human life to be pleasant, vast, refined, prosperous, elevated and successful. Those people who will have such a life will be declared as being munim alaihi, i.e., those who are in possession of the bounties of Allah. Details of this aspect will be found in various verses of the Quran, some of which are noted below. 1. For a nation to obtain a solution and freedom from the despotic grip of tyrannical rulers is Allah's Namat. Hence, Musa said to his people, Bani Israel, remind yourselves of this Namat of Allah which He blessed you with. You were chained in the grip of slavery by Pharaoh's people, they used to unleash various kinds of torments on you, Allah made you free from this and that was His supreme reward, 2:47-49. 2. But this is only a negative aspect, i.e., to achieve freedom from some suffering. After this, its positive aspect comes before us. This same nation of Bani Israel was reminded about this in the following words. O children of Israel! Call to mind the favor which I bestowed upon you, and that I preferred you to all others. 2:47. In other words, the blessed nation, Munim alaihi, is that which holds a prominent and superior position among its contemporary nations, i.e., not just equal to other nations, but far ahead of these and loftier. When the Quran stated and alone about the Jamaat-e-Mu'minin, you will be superior and ahead, 3:139, this is exactly what it meant, i.e., prominent and superior to all nations in the world. This was that superiority of dud and eminence of Sulayman which Sulayman attempted to express gratitude for in the following words. O my Rabb! So order me that I may be grateful for your favors, which you have bestowed on me and on my parents. 27:19. 3. In Surah An-Nahl, first of all, details are noted about various materials regarding life, houses and dwellings for habitation, protected shelters in mountains, garments to afford protection from the weather, armor for defense in battlefields, etc. And after this it is stated, thus does He complete His favors on you, that you may follow His laws. 16:81. Therefore for all the necessities of life to keep on becoming available is Allah's Namat. 4. In Surah Luqman this reality is noted using two such comprehensive words in which everything in the universe becomes incorporated. It is stated, do you not see that Allah has subjected to your use all things in the heavens and on earth, and has made His bounties flow to you in exceeding measure seen and unseen? 31:20. Have you not reflected on this reality that whatever is in the highs and lows of the universe, ard and samawat, Allah has placed it under your control, and in this way has made you aware of the abundance of His manifested and hidden bounties so that you may benefit from these. 5. In Surah Ibrahim, after a detailed description about harnessing the heavens and the earth, it is stated, and He gives you of all that you ask for. But if you count the favors of Allah, never will you be able to number them. 14:34. The Na'ima of Allah are so numerous that they cannot be counted or calculated. You can understand it in a few words as whatever means and resources were required by you for the nourishment of life and its strengthening and success, Allah has made provision for all of this for you. These are all Na'ima of Allah. 6. This was in relation to the means of sustenance for the physical life of man. But as has been noted before, man is not just defined by his physical life. Other than this, he also has a human life as well, whose development takes place according to those values which have been bestowed via wahi through the medium of Anbiya. In Surah Maryam, after mentioning different Anbiya, it is stated, those were some of the messengers on whom Allah did bestow His grace. 1958. Here, the bestowing of messengerhood is also declared as a blessing of Allah, though it is that blessing which man did not receive as a result of his efforts and deeds but used to be conferred from Allah by His will. This is that Namat of Allah whose conclusion took place in the form of the Quran, when it is stated, "This day have I completed your deen for you, completed my favor upon you," 5:3. Consequently, all mankind will now be able to benefit from this Namat of Wahi via the Quran till the Day of Judgment. This Namat, Wahi, is not present anywhere else, nor can it be conferred on anyone else after Rasulullah, in the presence of the immutable and preserved Book of Allah. What need is there for further Wahi? 7. The foremost sign of those people who benefit from this Namat, the Quran, is that there is no difference of any kind among them. Their hearts are bonded with each other. See in what clear words the Quran has noted this supreme fact when it states, "O Jamaat Imamanin, holding on all together, collectively, to this firm support bestowed from Allah, remain firm as one Jamaat, and do not create dissensions among yourselves. Remind yourselves of the Namat of Allah with which He has blessed you. You were enemies of one another, He joined your hearts with each other, did not merely unite you outwardly, and in this way made you brethren. This is a great Namat of His. You had reached the brink of the hell of destruction and ruin, He saved you from falling into it. In this way Allah makes His signs clear so that you keep treading on the right path." 3:103. 1.62 Allah's Na'ima are achieved through effort. From the above explanations this reality has become apparent to us what those things are which have been declared as Na'ima by Allah. And who are those Munam Alaihi, blessed people, who treaded on Allah's designated Sirat-e Mustaqim before us, and in order to follow whose path a supplication has been taught to us. But it is obvious that these Na'ima of Allah cannot be acquired merely by engaging in supplications. These are the natural consequence of Iman and righteous deeds, except Nabuwwat which was received externally. According to the Quran, Jannat is that place in the journey of life where these Na'ima of Allah become concentrated in their most exalted form. It is stated about this Jannat, "How excellent a reward for those who work righteousness." 39:74. What a glorious reward it is for those who work hard, with which they have been remunerated. To achieve this and make it sustainable, a detailed program has been given in Surah An-Nisa which we will present at its own place. Here it is sufficient to say that the companionship of these Munam Alaihi people is acquired by obeying the divine system. 4:64-70. 1.63 How were these, Na'ima, utilized? In this connection the next issue is that obtaining these Na'ima of Allah is not an end in itself, it is also necessary to assess how these Na'ima are utilized. If they are brought into use according to the values and laws of Allah, then this is termed as Shukri Namat, expressing gratitude for these blessings, and if they are utilized against these, then the Quran declares this as being Kufran-e Namat, denying these blessings. It is on this basis that it is stated that they will be questioned, "How did you utilize Allah's Na'ima?" Then, shall you be questioned that day about Na'ima. 102:8. If these divine Na'ima are utilized wrongly, against the Quran, then these are snatched away, whose first consequence is that that nation becomes inflicted with the consequences of fear and hunger. In Surah An-Nahl it is stated that Allah wishes to illustrate this reality through a metaphor. There was a habitation whose inhabitants enjoyed peace, as well as tranquility. The abundance of sustenance was such that it flowed from all four corners towards it. Yet was it ungrateful for the favors of Allah, so, Allah made it taste of hunger and terror like a garment, because of what they used to do. 16:112. These people did kufr against these Na'ima of Allah, and the consequence of this was that they became inflicted with the punishment of hunger and fear. This punishment did not come from an external source, it was the outcome of their own machinations, in other words, the outcome of their own self-created system. This same reality is noted at another place in these words. Have you not turned your vision to those who have changed the favor of Allah into denial, and caused their people to descend to the house of perdition? Into hell, they will burn there, in an evil place to stay in. 14:28-29. Have you observed the condition of these people who have converted the Na'ima of Allah into kafir, and in this way have deposited the caravan of their people in that marketplace where no buyer existed for their products, i.e. into hell. How dreadful was that place where the leaders of this nation transported them. But those responsible are not only the leaders of this nation, the whole nation is responsible for this. 1.64 Change in Namat through change in psyche. Because in this regard the Quran has decreed this principle. This is because Allah will never change the blessing which He has bestowed on a people until they change what is in their own selves, and verily Allah is He who hears and knows all things. 853. See also, 1311. This is because Allah never creates any change in those na'ima which a nation has acquired until the time that the nation does not bring about mental and psychological changes within itself. Remember, the decisions of Allah are not made randomly and blindly. It is obvious from this that the fundamental condition for obtaining na'ima and for their loss is the change in the psyche of a nation. If this change is in the right direction according to Allah's guidance, then this will be called iman, i.e. this will be the consequence of iman. And if it is in the wrong direction, then this will be termed as kufr. The issue began from this, that men of Allah, Jamaat-e-Mu'minin, accept and acknowledge this fact in the presence of Allah that we only accept your rule. In response to this, Allah directs, and be grateful for the favors of Allah, if it is He whom you obey. 16:114. If you are truthful in this claim of yours that you accept Allah's rule, then its practical proof will be that you utilize these na'ima bestowed by Allah according to His laws. As a consequence, these acquired na'ima will remain in place and there will also be continuous increases in them. And remember, your Rabb caused to be declared, if you are grateful, I will add more unto you, but if you show ingratitude, truly, my punishment is terrible indeed. 14:7. And when your Rabb proclaimed this Amr decree, that if you employ the na'ima correctly, shukri namat, then we will keep on giving an increase in these na'ima, but if you do kufr of these na'ima, then the punishment for this will be very severe. What this punishment will be is described in the next verse. The path of those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. 1:7. 1.65 Wrong translation. Among us the customary translation of these verses of Surah Al-Fatiha, 1:7-8, is as follows. Show us the straight path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your bounties, not those on whom your wrath descended, or those who went astray. 1:7-8. At a cursory glance there appears nothing objectionable in this translation, but if we look at it a bit more closely, then a very wrong concept of Allah appears before us. When we beseech Allah to show us the path of those people on whom you bestowed your bounties, i.e. the path of those blessed individuals or nations, munam alaihi, then up to this point the matter is plain and clear. But when we say this, not of those people on whom your wrath descended, or those who went astray, then from this the meaning which emerges is that Allah also guides to the path of those people who are condemned or astray. This concept about Allah that He also guides to the path of these people is highly objectionable. Allah is far above this, that He would guide His servants towards the path of those who are condemned and of nations which have gone astray. From some verses of the Quran some people draw this kind of meaning that Allah provides guidance to whomsoever He wishes and misguides whomsoever He wishes. This is not the correct meaning of these verses. The correct meaning of these verses will be given at those places where these verses have appeared. Here, it is necessary to understand this much, that man gains guidance or misguidance of his own accord. But since this is gained according to the law and code established by Allah, therefore it is related towards Allah. 1.66 Illustration through contrast. In order to understand the correct meaning of the verses noted above, it is important to bear this fact in mind, that the Quran also clarifies its facts and explanations through the use of contrast, and this technique is very appealing and effective. For example, by presenting contrasting words such as darkness and light, shadow and sunlight, or blind and seeing in opposition to each other, it makes its meaning clear. This is the style it has adopted in the verses quoted above. Their correct meanings are that, show us the path of those people who were successful, munim alaihi, and who were not misguided and had not become condemned, maktubi alaihi, i.e. they were like this, not like that. Thus, by use of contrast, the meaning became crystal clear. 1.67 The meaning of gadab, punishment. In the basic meanings of the word gadab, the propensity for intensity, power, heat, supremacy, ascendancy, and grip are found. When this word is used in relation to human beings, then the aim will be to imply anger, and those emotions associated with gadab. But Allah is above and beyond human emotions, hence, when this word is used in relation to Allah, then it will mean the firm grip of Allah's law of requital. That same meaning which is noted in such verses as, "Truly strong is the grip of your Rabb." 85:12. Or, "So we seized him, Pharaoh, with a heavy punishment." 73:16. This is the very meaning of Allah's gadab as well, i.e. that ruin and destruction which results according to the immutable law of requital. As noted above, here the meaning of the first line of the verse, Anamta alaihim, 1:8, is clarified by demonstrating its converse, e.g. when those bounties of Allah with which the nation of Bani Israel was bestowed were mentioned, it was stated about them, O Bani Israel, call to mind the na'ima which I bestowed upon you, and that I preferred you to all others. 247. Therefore, superiority over nations of the world is a namat of Allah. After this, when they abandoned this path, by treading on which they achieved this success, the consequence which transpired was, they were covered with humiliation and misery, they drew over themselves the wrath of Allah. 2:61. At another place, be overwhelmed with wrath from their Rabb, and with shame in this life. 7:152. From these verses it is clearly demonstrated that humiliation and degradation became imposed on them in the life of this very world. 1.68 Zillat, humiliation, and masnat, dormancy. The word zillat means every kind of beggary, weakness, subjugation, helplessness, despair, destitution, misery and degradation. Over there was supremacy, and here, there is humiliation and lowly existence. From this the meaning of Allah's bounties and Allah's punishment becomes evident. The other word is masnat. Life is the name for movement and activity, i.e. the name for continuously progressing on the highway of life. This is what is termed as persistent efforts or unmitigated endeavors. The nation which halts and becomes static at some point, becomes deprived of the energies of life. A stagnant nation does not just remain static in one place. If you look closely, it is in fact taking retrograde steps, because dynamic nations progress far ahead of it. Hence, masnat is the name for that condition of a nation when it stops from moving forward. In the Quran, Jahannam, hell, is also called Jahim, 5:10. And the meaning of Jahim is the closing of a path, dead end. 1.69 Intellectual inertia. We have observed this eternal principle of Allah that whatever bounties are in the possession of any nation, these never become snatched from it as long as it does not transform its psychic, internal, world. Therefore, whichever nation halts at one point, this does not only mean that its feet stop moving, it means that intellectual inertia becomes created within it, it gives up thinking and reasoning. It adopts the maslak of taqlid, emulating of forefathers. It deceives itself by saying that whatever was required to be researched about the facts and issues of life, it has been researched. Whatever distance was meant to be traversed in the journey of life, it has been traversed. This is indeed our final destination and our ultimate objective. The only authority they quote for this is that maslak which our forefathers had adopted. The Quran has contradicted this belief at many places and has declared in clear words that such a nation becomes deserving of Allah's gadab, wrath. For example, in Surah Al-Araf it is stated regarding the people of Ad that when their messenger, Hud, invited them to obedience of the sole sovereignty of Allah, they retorted, "Do you want us to give up the cult of our forefathers? In response to this, Hud said that this path of yours and your insistence on remaining on it provides evidence of this fact that, he said, punishment and wrath have already come upon you from your Rabb, dispute you with me over names which you have devised, you and your fathers, without authority from Allah? Then wait, I am amongst you, also waiting, and we cut off the roots of those who rejected our signs and did not accept Iman. 7:71-72. Allah's Ghadab and Rayz have already descended on you. The meaning of Rayz will be given in its own turn. Those false idols which you mention, those doctrines and beliefs which you refer to as being the teachings of haqq and truth, their reality is nothing other than being some names which your forefathers or perhaps you yourselves have now invented. Allah has sent down no approval of their being haqq and truth. Despite this warning and admonishment, they remained stubborn in their stance, the outcome of which was that the root of that nation became severed, because rather than acknowledging the truth of the laws of Allah, they continued to falsify them. It is obvious from this that the nation on which the wrath of Allah has descended becomes deprived of all the successes and prosperities of life, and even the very root of its tree of life becomes severed. 1.69.1 Mutual fights and the wrath of Allah. One of the signs which was mentioned of a blessed nation was that the hearts of the members of this nation are bonded together. 3:103, their mutual love and affection have reached to an extremity. Contrary to this, the Quran has stated that if the state of a nation becomes such that they start cutting each other's throats, then the wrath of Allah descends upon them. In Surah An-Nisa it is stated, if someone kills a mu'min intentionally, his recompense is hell, to abide therein, and the wrath and curse of Allah are upon him, and a dreadful penalty is prepared for him. 4:93. 1.70 Allah's sikt, punishment. The word sikt, which is also noted in the Quran, is very nearly a synonym of ghadab. The point at which this word has been used is worthy of deep reflection. The code of life which is revealed by Allah is complete, and obedience to it means that this complete code should be followed fully, i.e., such a system should be established in which all matters are resolved according to this very code. If it so happens that some matters are settled according to Allah's laws, and some through self-devised laws, or according to the codes of other nations, then the consequence of this dualism can be nothing other than humiliation and ruin. For reference see verse 2:85. The verdict about such a nation is that it is makthubi alayhi, condemned to punishment. A clarification of this is given in another verse by saying that the condition of some people is such that, after clear guidance reaching them from Allah, they revert to their previous path. This is called irtidad, i.e. apostasy. In other words, in certain matters they begin to obey those people for whom the code of Allah is a burden. The end of these people is very painful. Those who turn back as apostates after guidance was clearly shown to them, this, because they said to those who hate what Allah has revealed, we will obey you in part of the matter, but Allah knows their inner secrets. But how will it be when the Malaika take their selves at death, and smite their faces and their backs? This because they followed that which called forth the wrath of Allah, and they hated Allah's good pleasure, in disagreement with the laws of Allah, so, He made their deeds of no effect. 47:25-28. The last words of the verse merit close attention. What is stated here is that in some matters these people obey non-divine laws. From this the mind begins to think that they should definitely be rewarded for those matters in which they follow the divine code, i.e., not all of their deeds should go to waste. This misgiving is based on a shallow perception. If you look at it in greater depth, this reality will become evident that the natural outcome of following such a path is that all the efforts and deeds of an individual will go to waste. Let us understand it through an example. If, in your treatment from a physician, you take some ingredients from his prescription, and some ingredients from the prescription of another healer, just think whether these different ingredients will produce their correct outcome, or will all of your efforts become wasted? The system of life only produces correct effects when all of its ingredients are correct, pure, proportionate, and are each of them at their precise level, and there is no kind of contamination in them or mutual conflicting interaction. This is called tawheed. If a constituent from another system is grafted into the system, then this kind of hybrid system cannot produce any constructive result. This kind of grafting or mixing is termed shirk. Deen is the name for the system which is based on tawheed. In religion, human ideologies, beliefs, rituals, and rites are all mixed in. This is why the deeds of a religious nation remain fruitless. In the performance of religiously defined rituals and obligations, it bears severe hardships and undergoes painful and patience-testing practices, but no constructive result comes from these, while it continues instead to fall, day by day, into pits of humiliation and disgrace. 1.71 Being a mushrik despite claiming to have iman. About these kinds of people the Quran states, and most of them do not have iman in Allah without associating partners with Him. 12:106, see also, 1746, 39:45, 40:12. Despite acknowledging iman, they remain only as mushrik. If there is even the slightest mixing of non-Allah laws in pure deen, it becomes shirk. The Quran has also described other signs of condemned nations, but at this point, for the sake of brevity, we will suffice with these. When those verses come before us, details of those will also be provided. But in conclusion, we consider it essential to present one such sign which has been accorded specific prominence in our time, and that is the economic system. The Quran has declared hunger to be Allah's chastisement, 16:112, but on the other hand it has also stated that many such nations also became destroyed who had acquired a myriad of economic prosperities, 28:58. The question arises that when economic deprivation is a sign of Allah's wrath and punishment, then how can economic prosperity be the cause for destruction? 1.72 Economic imbalance. The matter is clearly evident that the only economic system which can be the basis for the prosperity of a nation is one in which the distribution of sustenance is balanced. The condition of a system in which the balance is distorted becomes such that one part of the nation lives a life of hunger and deprivation, and the other part enjoys abundances of the means of sustenance. The inevitable consequence of this imbalance in the distribution of sustenance is the destruction of this system and ruin of this nation. See how the Quran has declared this to be a reason for Allah's punishment. It states, "Eat of the good things we have provided for your sustenance, but commit no excess therein, lest my wrath should justly descend on you, and those on whom descends my wrath do perish indeed." 20:81. Consume the rizq bestowed on you by Allah in a halal and balanced manner. Do not adopt such a course of action in which the division of rizq becomes imbalanced. The meaning of not committing excesses has been made clear from the verse of Surah Ar-Rahman where it is stated, "In order that you may not transgress balance." 55:8. If you do this then you will suffer from Allah's punishment, and listen to this carefully, that whichever nation becomes embroiled in the wrath of Allah, by falling into the deep gullies of humiliations and deprivations it becomes destroyed and annihilated. A detailed discussion about the economic system will be given at its own place. Not only has the Quran stated do not adopt such a path as a result of which Allah's wrath descends upon you, it has also urged not to have friendly relationships with those people who are declared as being condemned by the Quran. 1.73 Friendship with Maktubi Alaihi, the condemned. In Surah Al-Mujadilah it is stated, "Turnest you not your attention to those who turn in friendship to such as have the wrath of Allah upon them? They are neither of you nor of them, and they swear to falsehood knowingly. Allah has prepared for them a severe penalty, evil indeed are their deeds." 58:14-15. Have you ever pondered on the condition of such people who establish friendly relationships with those people who are under the shadow of Allah's wrath, even though there is no commonality between these two? In another verse the Jamaat-e-Mu'minin are forbidden from this by stating, "O you who have iman, turn not for friendship to people on whom is the wrath of Allah." 60:13. It is clear from these explanations that when a mu'min expresses this wish of his that I should not somehow tread on the path of those who are condemned, what his aim is from this, and what the will of the Quran is in this matter. After this, Let us examine the next part of the verse, 1:7. 1.74 Walad dalin, misguided. Just as the Quran has described being blessed as the opposite of being condemned, similarly, it has used the word dalalat, misguidance, in opposition to hidayah, guidance. Fundamentally, it means to be bewildered and worried, or to wander about aimlessly, also for something to become hidden or disappear, for different things to become mixed in such a way that these cannot then be separated, just as water mixes in milk. Since the one who loses his direction in the desert cannot then reach his destination despite all his efforts, this word is therefore also used for the failure and going to waste of effort and hard work, as has been described in Surah Al-Kahf, 18:103, i.e., all their efforts became wasted. The individual on a wrong path remains immersed in this self-deception that he is treading on the right path. This is why a mirage is called al-mudhilu. Though an individual who is about to become a nabi, before his nubuwwat reaches this conclusion based on his insight that the path on which the society is going is not right, he does not have the correct path before him. As a result, a strong desire arises in his heart in search of the truth, and he searches around in pursuit of the right path, until such a time that he receives the correct guidance from the direction of Allah. It is quoted in the Quran regarding Rasool that, "And he found you seeking truth, he gave you guidance." 93:7. We found you in search of truth, so you were guided towards the right path. This is stated with regard to a nabi, but the reality is that every seeker of truth has to adopt this same method. 1.75 Wandering in search of truth. If some individual remains satisfied, without research and investigation, with the prevalent ideologies and beliefs in his society, or world, then neither any desire takes birth in his heart to seek the correct path of life, nor can he get onto the correct path. It is of great importance to evaluate the prevailing environment using intellect and reasoning. The famous philosopher of the modern era, Whitehead, has said that to accept the prevalent ideas and beliefs of your era as they are and to remain fixated on them is idolatry. It is interesting that even among Arabs themselves this meaning was implicit in idolatry. In their language the word watan was also used for an idol, and the meaning of watan is to be immobile and static, that is what is known as blind obedience, which leads to stagnation. The follower of such a course can never adopt the right path. 1.76 Destructions due to taqlid. The Quran has informed us that those people who do not make use of intellect and reasoning can never set out on the right path, their end is hell. In Surah Al-Araf it is stated, "Many are the jinns and men we have made for hell, they have hearts wherewith they understand not, eyes wherewith they see not, and ears wherewith they hear not. They are like cattle, nay more misguided, for they are heedless of warning." 7:179. You will come across such people in the world whose path will tell you that they are destined for hell. The question which arises is, who are these people whose paths in life demonstrate that they are living a life bound for hell? They are those people who, though they hold hearts in their chests, with the potential to think and understand, do not make use of these to reflect and reason. They have eyes but do not use them to see, they also have ears but do not employ these to hear. These people live life not at the human level but at an animalistic level, in fact, at a level even lower than that of animals, because animals do not employ intellect and reasoning, as they are simply not provided with this potential, but at least they live life according to their instincts. In contrast to them, these people are ignorant of the destination intended for them and unaware even of their own stature. These are those very people to whom the Quran referred when it stated to Rasulullah that you cannot make the dead to hear, nor make such people hear to whom you wish to say something and who instead turn their faces away and do not even wish to listen to what you have to say, nor can you guide the blind towards the right path. Verily, you cannot make the dead hear, nor can you make the deaf hear the call, when they show their backs and turn away. Nor can you lead back the blind from their straying, only those will you make to hear, who have iman in our signs and submit in Islam. 30:52-53. The Quran has divided those who do not use their intellect and reasoning principally into two categories. One being those who, having reached the crossroads of life, do not feel the need to consider which path they should turn towards, nor any need to seek the advice of anyone. Whatever path the crowd is traveling on, they follow behind them without thought or comprehension. The authority they have for this is the belief of theirs that this is that path which our forefathers adopted and which has continued to reach us throughout the generations without a break. The Quran states about them that, when after continuing to tread on this path they eventually reach hell and they are asked, why did you follow this path, they will reply. And they would say, our Rabb. We obeyed our chiefs and our great ones, and they misled us as to the right path. 33:67. 1.76.1 Overpowered by emotions. The second type is of those kinds of people who, though they are aware of the right path, their vested interests do not permit them to come to this path. By becoming consumed by their emotions they become blind, and their intellect and reasoning, knowledge and vision, are of no use to them. In Surah Al-Yathiyah it is stated, then see you such a one as takes as his God his own vain desire? Allah has, knowing him as such, left him astray, and sealed his hearing and his heart, and put a cover on his sight. Who, then, will guide him after Allah? Will you not then receive admonition? 45:23. It should be made clear that, as already stated in verse 1:1, human desires and emotions are not something to be despised, it is their wrong use which destroys man. If these are kept within Allah's guidance, then great constructive results are accomplished from them. Hence, it is stated in Surah Al-Qasas, but if they hearken not to you, know that they only follow their own lusts, and who is more astray than one who follows his own lusts, devoid of guidance from Allah? For Allah guides not people given to wrongdoing. 28:50. 1.77 The Dalalat of the democratic system. In our times misguidance has another face also, which is becoming commonplace in the whole world, and which is considered to be a very great feat of the modern era. This is that path which is termed democracy, and whose foundation is on this belief that the decision of the majority is always right, and this is what should be followed. Contrary to this, the Quran declares, were you to follow most of those on earth, they will lead you away from the path of Allah. They follow nothing but conjecture, they do nothing but lie. 6:116. If you obey the majority of mankind, they will mislead you from the path leading in the direction of Allah. These people follow conjecture and speculation and are guided by their presumptions. Contrary to this, your Rabb knows best who strays from his path, he knows best who they are that receive his guidance. 6:117. The only criteria for right and wrong, haqq and batil, is the guidance of Allah. This is that guidance about which it was proclaimed to mankind. Whosoever follows my guidance will not lose his way, nor fall into misery. 20:123. Whoever follows my guidance will neither divert from the correct path, nor by suffering from heart-rending hardships will he be deprived of bounties. 1.78 Those who sell mud clothed as deen. We have seen at the beginning that when two things are mixed together in such a way that it is no longer possible to separate them, this is also called misguidance, as already stated, see verse 1:3. When the deen of Allah, communicated by the Anbiya, converts into religion, then this same state of the mixing of haqq and batil is produced. These become intertwined with each other in such a way that never mind separating them, even their identification becomes problematic. Then, like a fraudulent milkman who sells milk mixed with water as pure milk, those involved in religion as a business sell the self-created commercial product of religion by branding it as the pure product of deen and receive very great remittances for this. These are the ones about whom it is stated. But there are, among men, those who purchase idle tales, without knowledge, to mislead from the path of Allah and throw ridicule, for such there will be a humiliating penalty. 31:6. These people keep the public deluded by their fabricated tales and fictional fables, so that they can keep them astray from the path of Allah. Though they are, In fact, uneducated, by presenting themselves as very great scholars they become the leaders of men, and they do all this for the sake of earning their bread. That self-created religion which they present in the garb of deen is highly risible, the consequence being that the world considers the true deen itself, which they relate to themselves, as a jest. The nation which plays such games with deen sinks into a severely humiliating punishment. Cast a general glance at the nations of the world and you will witness that the extent to which a nation is submerged in madhab, it will be ignorant and backward to that same degree. This is what Allah's punishment is. Madhab is the sum total of superstitions, and the natural consequence of superstition is backwardness and ruin. 1.79 is rizq, sustenance, in Allah's hand. In the previous pages we had finished the explanation of Maghdubi alayhim on this verse of the Quran, 1:7, in which it is stated that the consequence of an unbalanced economic system is hell. In relation to misguidance, too, one such verse comes before us. In Surah Yasin it is stated, "And when they are told, spend of the bounties with which Allah has provided you, the Kafireen say to those who have Iman, shall we then feed those whom, if Allah had so willed, he would have fed himself? You are in nothing but manifest error." 36:47. When those people who have rizq in excess of their needs are told to keep the surplus available for those who are in need of it, they say in reply, "What kind of wrong path are you advising us to follow? Allah has kept the distribution of rizq in his own hand, those people who are poor and deprived are thus because of the mashiat of Allah. Allah himself wishes them to remain in this condition. To now say that we should give them surplus rizq to end their poverty and deprivation is equivalent to waging a war against Allah. If Allah wished, he would have provided them with rizq himself." The reply which is received in the Quran from Allah about this objection of theirs is, "Say to them, how blatantly misguided you are, Allah does not give rizq directly to anyone. The distribution of rizq is through the hands of the Islamic system, and that system in which this kind of class differentiation does not endure is shaped according to Allah's guidance. This is the path of those on whom there are Allah's blessings." Details of these matters will appear later when the Quranic system of sustenance is discussed. From the above discussion it is clear that when the Quran had taught this supplication to the Jamaat-e-Momineen, that we should not tread on the path of those people who are daleen, losing direction, what it meant by this. It is on this basis that it instructed, "Nor follow the vain desires of people who went wrong in times gone by, who misled many and strayed themselves from the straight path." 5:77. Do not follow the desires of those former peoples who went astray themselves and also misguided others, and in this way both the leaders and followers went astray from the straight and balanced path leading to Allah. 1.80 These are not some specific nations. It is also obvious from the above that by Maghdubi alayhi and Daleen are not meant some specific nations, their application will be to all those nations which were deprived of Allah's na'imah due to treading on the wrong path, and in this way sank into a hell of destruction and ruin, whether it was nations in the era before the descent of the Quran, or of nations of that time, or of nations yet to come till the last day. But among us it is commonly understood and taught that by Maghdubi alayhi is meant the nation of the Jews, and by Daleen is meant the Christians. In this way we have deceived ourselves that condemned and misguided nations are other nations, we are not to be counted among them. Not only this. We have in fact divided the whole of the Quran into different categories in this way, so that wherever there is mention of destructions and devastations, by declaring that this is about Jews, this is about Christians, this is about the pagans of Makkah, this is about the Kufr of Arabia, etc., etc. We become deceived ourselves and remain so. They are all destined for hell, whereas Jannat has been prepared solely for us. But realities cannot be altered through self-deception. The only way that we can emerge from this self-deception is by declaring Allah's book to be a criterion, and then seeing and understanding and evaluating whether we are to be counted among the group who are blessed, or in the group of those who are condemned and misguided. 1.81 Summary of Chapter 1. You will have seen that at the beginning of each book there is a foreword or a preface. The purpose of this is to introduce the subject or contents of the book. The most suitable foreword or preface is that which is extremely concise, yet it demonstrates this fact in comprehensive words regarding the purpose and objective of the book. Surah al-Fatiha is called Fatiha al-Kitab, the meaning of which is that the surah is the preface or introduction of al-Kitab, i.e. the Quran. If we look at its succinctness, then this surah consists of 7 verses, and the verses are also so brief that they consist of a few words. But the state of its comprehensiveness is such that the fundamental teaching of the Quran and the essence of the system of Deen has been compressed into it, and appears in such a way as if the whole of the sky is being reflected in the pupil of the eye. This is glaring evidence of the marvel and miracle of the Quran. At the beginning of Surah Al-Fatiha the words Bismillahirrahmanirrahim come before us. If these are referred to Allah, i.e. if Allah himself is considered to be addressing us, its meaning will be that this book has been sent down so that the responsibility for the nourishment of mankind which Allah had taken on himself, becomes fulfilled. This nourishment was not possible without the guidance of Wahi. And if it is referred to human beings, i.e. it is understood that Allah has given this teaching to human beings, then this will mean that every moment accepts and announces that the purpose of the program which I am taking into my hand is that the attributes of Rahmaniyat and Rahimiyat of Allah become manifested to all. After this Surah Al-Fatiha comes before us. I was puzzling over appropriate words and an explanation for its summary, when I saw that the meaning which I have written in explanation for it in the Mafhum al-Quran is the most suitable summary for this. This is why I consider it appropriate to present it here, as follows. When man reflects on the organization and administration of the system of the universe, then this truth becomes unveiled and appears before him how everything in it continuously receives the means of nourishment without any recompense or payment, and from which it reaches its point of completion from its starting point, progressively under normal circumstances, and if need be through emergent evolution. On observing this astounding system of sustenance, Rabi'ah, spontaneous words of appreciation and admiration appear on the lips of every man of vision, and he exclaims involuntarily, "O our Rabb, you have neither created any of the things in the universe without purpose, nor for a destructive outcome." 3:190-191. These are those men of knowledge and conviction who are the ones who truly do hamd, appreciation, in earnest of Allah. 9:112. They are the ones who are called Allama, scholars. 35:27-28. For the completion of this program of Allah, it is essential that those tyrannical forces which are impediments in the path of nourishment of others should be removed from the path. This is the first step of Hamd at 6:45. The consequence of removing these tyrannical forces from the path will be that such a system will become established in which a human being will neither be dependent on another man, nor under his rule. In this the decisions of all matters will be according to the laws of Allah. 17:111, 43:84, 82:18-19. This is the system which must finally overcome all systems of life which are devised by men. 933. This system will become shaped at the hands of those individuals who will proclaim this great reality and will certify this proclamation in practical terms. That other than Allah we do not accept the sovereignty and obedience of anyone else, nor do we seek aid from any non-Allah system. 3:79, 1240. The practical application of this is obedience to the commands and principles of His supreme book, the Quran. 5:44-48. When these individuals, Jamaat Imamanin, step forward in the journey of life, these beautiful wishes and pious desires appear on their lips as supplications that, O Allah, may the straight and harmoniously balanced path of life which guides us towards our desired objective without fear and grief emerge distinctly in front of us. In other words, that path by treading on which obedient nations from the past embraced bounties and successes of life. As a result of this, by harnessing the forces of the universe, they achieved a distinguished position among their fellow nations. 247, 31:20. As long as these nations kept treading on the path ordained by you, they continued to benefit from the bounties of life. When an alteration occurred in their ideology of life, these bounties became snatched from them, 853, and they became humiliated and disgraced in the world, 2:61, 7:152. Their pastures of efforts and deeds burned and were reduced to a heap of ashes, and because the right path had become obscured from their eyes, their caravan of life remained lost in a maze of speculations and conjectures. Sometimes with eyes shut they kept pursuing the antiquated ways of their forefathers, 37:69-71, and sometimes they made their own desires as their guide, 45:23. When they became hopeless due to being lost in the convolutions of this journey devoid of a destination, they deceived themselves by asserting that it was never the will of Allah to show us the right path, 6:149. O Allah, we beseech you to enable us to follow the path prescribed by you, so that our end is not also like that of those who bear a scorched burden. Because we know that no one can show the right path to a nation which turns its face away from your guidance, 61:5. At the same time, we also know that this path can only appear to those who strive to seek it, 29:69. We also ask you to grant us the ability to make this sustained endeavor.